You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, lovely.
Good morning, it's August the 28th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at paceradio.net and CBGTV.com.
Al, are you frozen or am I frozen?
Are you frozen?
Oh, no.
Here we go. We're already freezing up. It was cold this morning.
Well, one of us is frozen, and it... Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
Oh, there you are. Okay, yes. Are you there, Al?
I'm there. I'm here.
A little bit frozen today.
Well, you know, this morning, it's funny you say that, because this morning I woke up, it was 9 degrees.
It's a little bit chilly now as we head towards our Labor Day weekend, which is our last long weekend of the summer. So yeah, it's getting cold. Our plants are freezing now at night, aren't they?
Oh yeah, that temperatures. If it's 9 degrees at 7:30 in the morning, what time was it? What temperature was it before then?
Yeah.
Was it 7? Brr. It's
Yeah,
getting there.
cold.
Fall is coming. It's just around the corner, right?
Good thing that there's such hardy plants that they can deal with the cold like that.
That's right. Exactly. Well, what do you say? Ready to get into the news? All right. First story up comes to us from MJ Biz Daily. Former CEO, Canadian Prime Minister exit Board of Marijuana MSO acreage.
Yes, the former CEO Kevin Murphy and ex-Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney have resigned from the board of directors of the New York-based cannabis multi-state operator Acreage Holdings.
In an August 4th filing of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, the company said neither resignation was the result of a disagreement with Acreage on any matter relating to the company's operations, policies, or practices.
In June, Acreage streamlined its board to prepare for the company's acquisition by Canopy USA, the American arm of Canadian producer Canopy Growth Corporation.
The Smith Falls, Ontario headquarter Canopy announced in October it was expediting plans to acquire Acreage, Jetty Extracts, and Wana Brands. Canopy struck a deal in 2019 to buy Acreage for $3.4 billion pending U.S. legalization.
Wow. Murphy founded Acreage and served as the chief executive from 2014 to 2020. He had chaired it on the board since 2014. And Mulroney, that prime minister from 84 to 93, he joined the Acreage board in 2018, the year of legalization.
The company had a lot of promise at the time, having also added its board John Boehner, I can't pronounce his name right, former Speaker of the House of Representatives Douglas Main, a former IBM Chief Financial Officer, and Larissa Herda, former CEO of TW Telecom, which is formerly Time Warner.
So all these politician people that had cannabis illegal and probably voted for it and probably kept it illegal, they went and formed a cannabis company?
Well, yeah, you got to look at former Canadian Prime Minister, former Speaker of the House of Representatives. People who would be making those laws. You're absolutely right. Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's slimy. The company did not turn a profit. They reported a net loss of $32 million in 2018 and $195 million in 2019, Al.
360 million in 2020. Look at that. Wow. Now, back in 2018, an interview with Mulroney told MJ Biz stated that others will follow Canada's lead in legalizing cannabis at the federal level. So far, no nation has. What do they mean? Well, There's
I
some
like
that
how they wrote that.
are.
So far, no nation has. That's right.
There's
Mulrooney.
people who,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So there you go. Former prime minister, no longer involved in the cannabis business.
Jumping ship before it sinks even further. Wow. Bye-bye,
Hey,
giants.
okay. Next story. And just so you know, a couple Canadian stories that we probably wouldn't be seeing on Facebook. Next up is an unlicensed Mississauga cannabis store raided, and two men have been charged. Now, before you get into the story, we have Kelly. Look at that picture. Look at the storefront. It's got 9 cement blocks
Yeah.
blocking
Yeah.
access.
Not getting in and out of there. So I guess that two men are facing drug-related charges. There was a police raid, and it was an unlicensed cannabis store in Mississauga, and it happened this past Friday.
Yeah, in a press release, Peel Police said the strategic tactical enforcement policing officers, along with uniform officers, executed a Cannabis Act search warrant on the dispensary located in the area of Dundas and here Ontario streets, which would be at one time it was considered Crooksville and downtown Mississauga at one time.
Right, right, your old
Yeah,
stomping ground there.
yeah.
The
We used to go
warrant,
grocery
yeah,
shopping at that corner.
yeah. Well, that's happening there now. The warrant
Yeah.
led to the seizure of various items, including what they're calling drugs and drug paraphernalia, Canadian currency, televisions, and a BB gun. They had a BB gun.
Yes, yeah. The police also arrested a 42-year-old Dennis Arnenberg and a 28-year-old by the name of Hung Han Vu. The two men have been charged with possession for the purpose of distribution and possessing cannabis for the purpose of selling.
There's also an additional charge of possession of property obtained by a crime for Vu. Both have been released on bail, but according to the police, the premise had shown a blatant disregard for law enforcement as 8 search warrants were executed between July 19th and December 2022, coupled with numerous calls for service. So they've been open for a really long time.
For a while, yeah, because in Mississauga, it was they only just approved having stores there.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
these guys were making dunk.
Yeah, in collaboration with the city of Mississauga, Peel Police have barricaded the entrance of the establishment to prohibit entry into the store. And this is how they're stopping them from reopening. So this
Yeah.
picture here is the back of the store.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the story is the front. Now this is the back.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a way
there
to
you go.
do it, I guess. How are they going to get those blocks off?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
They're
I
not gonna.
know at the cafe in
Yeah,
Toronto, they were able, I think they moved them.
they moved them. Not
Or,
only did
or at
they
one
move
time
them,
they
but they were
actually
serving
operated.
cannabis on them
I
and
think
around them.
Yeah, they operated in front of them for a bit as well. There's yeah.
You won't stop us.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
2018, when cannabis legalization came into effect, Mississauga was one of the dozens, as we said before, the municipalities that opted out here,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then they
they
lifted
opted
it.
out. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. Now that just so you know,
Yeah.
that corner here in Ontario, and that's uh our family, my grandmother,
Mhm.
they had a bakery on the corner.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe it's at the same spot.
yeah. Maybe.
Now they're selling weed out of there.
No,
I love
yeah,
it.
no, it's gone.
Yeah.
Uh, all righty. Our next story. If I got this, no, I got it lined up wrong. I had the same story lined up. Yeah, I'll get this corrected. All right, this is an interesting one. I really like this one. I like this headline on this, and I think others will as well. From Marijuana Moment, former top FDA official predicts agency will make Schedule 3 marijuana recommendation with election cycle in mind. Schedule 3 is
A
better than
former
1.
top Food and Drug Administration official believes it's most likely that cannabis will be put in Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act following an ongoing administrative review ordered by President Biden last year. FDA is mindful of political factors such as the 2024 election, the official said, so no policy change may come sooner rather than later.
Howard Sklamberg, who previously served as chair of the FDA's marijuana working group from 2014 to 2017, spoke about the possible outcomes of the review, the impact of rescheduling, and the agency's timeline on a Mindset Capital podcast I released last Thursday.
There's two things that certainly won't happen with FDA's scheduling review. Sklamberg predicted a recommendation to keep cannabis in Schedule 1 or guidance to deschedule it altogether.
So those two won't happen. The
Yep.
agency has more flexibility since it last looked into cannabis scheduling in 2016, so maintaining the status quo is unlikely, he says. And on the other hand, descheduling would be extremely difficult for FDA given regulatory restraints. Will you change the regulation?
As far as the Goldilocks position, if I were a betting man, I think the most likely outcome will be Schedule 3, said Sklamberg, now an attorney at the firm Arnold and Porter. He added that while Schedule 2 is still a possibility, it wouldn't have the same practical impact on issues such as allowing cannabis businesses to take federal tax deductions. FDA isn't supposed to be results oriented, he said, but the context does matter.
The former official also discussed the government's rescheduling timeline, pushing back against the notion that the review process will take years as it has in the past. This is not in the normal timetable. They are aware of the importance of the issue, the interest of the issue, the White House's interest in the issue, and they're frankly aware of the election cycle and the administration's terms coming to an end at the end of 2024. I think all of those things come together, he says.
Okay, we'll see. The
Yeah.
administration hasn't set a deadline for the review to be completed, but U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra, who oversees the FDA, told Marijuana Moment in June that agencies were aiming to finish their work by the end of the year. Yes,
Yeah.
we've heard that before.
The FDA's role is just one half of the review process. Once it completes its scientific review into the cannabis, it will share its findings with recommendations with the DEA, which then carries out its own 8-step review before making a final call.
Sklamberg stressed in his podcast comments that while a scheduling change would be a gigantic step, regulations would likely continue to evolve over a period of years. And as younger voters more supportive of legislation gain representation in politics, new policies will likely reflect that.
I agree. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
this will be an important step in a longer process, he says. And he also strongly dismissed concerns that placing cannabis in Schedule 3 would lead to a crackdown on state markets, acknowledging that many industry stakeholders and advocates would rather see complete descheduling. He pointed out that the FDA and the Justice Department have taken a hands-off approach to the legalization movement while cannabis is considered a Schedule 1 drug. It defies logic to think the agencies suddenly would enforce criminalization if it's moved to a less restrictive category, he argues.
So Slamberg contributed to a report on scheduling considerations that was released by the recently formed Coalition for Cannabis Scheduling Reform in June, and in February he discussed the issue in a memorandum that he authored on behalf of the cannabis company Columbia Care.
In all likelihood, he says the FDA will not change its approach to cannabis if it's rescheduled, in part because increasing enforcement would strain the agency's resources, potentially forcing them to compromise other food safety responsibilities, such as preventing E. coli and monitoring interstate dairy commerce.
Those are important things.
Mm-hmm.
If FDA, they are, attempted to single out certain cannabis or hemp companies for violating its rules related to introducing unapproved additives into food supply or dietary supplements, he continued, it would be breaking with a mandate against arbitrary action and could find itself in legal trouble under administrative law. Wow.
Yeah, the conversation closed on a separate federal marijuana topic, the possibility of the U.S. Attorney General reissuing a memo to federal prosecutors with explicit guidance on cannabis enforcement priorities. An Obama-era memo on that issue, known as the Cole Memo, was rescinded under the Trump administration, and some advocates have pushed for an updated version to provide some clarity and assurance to the industries and consumers.
Slimberg minimized the practical impact of such a memo, noting that the Justice Department has not meaningfully changed its approach to cannabis policy in the more than 2 years since the last version was rescinded under the Trump administration in 2018.
I think it's a fact. It would be more reassuring and psychological than real, he says. I don't think a Garland memo is necessary for the administration to maintain its posture it has now. As far as any change, we'd like to see what's in the memo, but it hasn't gone after cannabis in a big way, and I don't think it will. There you go. So fingers crossed. What I was sort of hoping for a little bit more in there was maybe some information as far as what Schedule 3 was.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking that we would understand what that meant in the classification. I don't know. What is it right now? Schedule 1, right?
Yes. Yeah. They say there's no
Yeah.
medical benefit whatsoever.
So if it's
So
Schedule
it's,
3, more people can have access to it and you can have a bank account or something. Just stop
yeah. Well,
scheduling
see,
it. Let it be free.
yeah, because Congress has been trying to sort of do all that stuff, and it always just
Yeah.
falls flat. Like like
Yeah.
Safe Banking Act 7 times being read. Like it
7.
just doesn't make sense. You
Nope.
know.
It does because they want
Good.
to capitalize on cannabis. So
Yeah,
that's
there's
all it
lots of
is.
people who want it done. Association. There was even a banking association story that said that they wanted it done. So,
Support.
all right, on to the next story. We're heading off to Thailand, and Thailand's weed industry is yeah, yeah. Thailand's weed industry is poised to grow fast, and like that one story said something about no country's done it since Canada has. We know Thailand has.
Thailand has. They're attempting to. Look at those plants.
One
Wow.
time they did. Okay, go ahead.
In Bangkok these days, it's hard not to notice the weed dispensaries catering to tourists that have multiplied since the government decriminalized cannabis last year.
There you go. Oh, decriminalize, legalize. All right. Many of them take advantage of lax regulations to openly sell visitors dried cannabis flowers that have been imported illegally from Canada to the United States. On a recent afternoon, one shop advertised its pungent offerings, weed strains with names like ice cream cake and lemon cookies as California's finest.
I bet they are. Such dispensaries may soon be out of business because of the competition, oversupply, and expected new regulations around the cultivation, sale, and several cannabis industry experts said in interviews that survivors will sell high quality, domestically grown cannabis, which helps explain why investors have been plowing millions of dollars into high tech indoor cannabis farms across Thailand. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Although no one knows what kind of regulations the nation's newly elected leadership will usher in. Cannabis industry experts said the rules will most likely give investors more clarity and raise the bar to market entry in a way that benefits businesses with the best domestic supply chains.
Smart money is going to come in, Sarasat Paninji, a co-chief executive of the company Benedicana, said recently in an indoor cannabis farm in outer Bangkok. He was wearing a white lab coat and standing near grow rooms packed with LED lights, advanced watering systems, and row after row of young cannabis plants.
Many Thai cannabis growers, including us, are happy to comply provided there are healthy regulations, added Mr. Surasat, whose $2 million farm produces 55 to 66 pounds a month of dried cannabis flowers. The part that caused, yeah. Some of this is sold to at a sister company's downtown dispensary, Mr. Dope.
Dr. Dope.
Dr. Dope. There you go.
Dr. Dope. I love it. As jurisdictions across the United States and in other countries steadily liberalize their laws around cannabis, the novelty of legal weed is wearing off for residents. Thailand's industry is thriving in a region where long prison terms or worse for cannabis possession, consumption, or trafficking are still the norm.
Thailand once had harsh laws too, but when the government removed uh, cannabis flowers from its prohibited narcotics list in June of 2022, a domestic industry appeared overnight, starting with weed trucks in tourist districts. Less than a year later, there were about 12,000 registered dispensaries, but some estimates more than in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how many we have here in Canada, but 12,000 is a lot.
Well, we got 17. Yeah, we got 1,700 here in Ontario
In
alone.
Ontario, 12,000 in Canada? I mean, I don't know if we have 12,000 in
Yeah, I don't.
Canada.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we had the
That's
numbers
a
there recently.
lot
Yeah,
of
12.
and Thailand's so small. An
Yeah,
obvious draw for investors is that Thailand's cannabis industry pairs nicely with a prime source of customers, tourists, of whom were there nearly 40 million annually before the pandemic, and who are now starting to return. And growers say that tourists, not locals, are their primary target market.
yeah. But because Thai legislator has not yet passed a law to clarify legal gray areas, the industry exists in a state of regulatory limbo. All sales are still technically for medical purposes, even if cannabis is widely used in practice as a party drug, and illegal imports have become so common that some shops openly advertise them.
I want to go there before that all changes.
Yeah.
Oversupply and illegal imports have sent retail cannabis prices tumbling by about a third in recent months to the equivalent of $22 a gram, Al. $22 a gram is that's what you pay
Oh,
there. And it
wow.
dropped. What? Wait a second. What was it before?
What was it
Um,
before?
it was saying it's dropped by about a third in recent months. So
The equivalent of
I guess
$22
it
a
was paying
gram. $30.
$35 maybe.
Yeah,
Some
yeah, I guess say
dispensaries have
30 to 35.
folded
Sure. Wow.
during the summer low season for tourism. So summer isn't the season to go. Managing director of a cannabis trading and marketing company based in
Yeah.
Bangkok says.
There is uncertainty too over what Thailand's cannabis regulations will look like. The new prime minister, whom the Thai parliament elected on Tuesday, told reporters ahead of the May general election that his political party did not want full cannabis legalization and would support use for medical purposes. Because at before that election, it was where basically the government gave out 1 million seeds
Yeah.
for people to grow.
Guys,
Like it was as if it
build the
went from those
island.
vegetarian laws to nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
Foreign and Thai investors are piling into the market anyway. Precise investment data is scarce, but they say that some companies have already built expensive indoor farms across Thailand, with investment from the US and Europe, Australia, Russia, Singapore, among others. Singapore? What? Hold
Yeah,
on.
that's where they
Isn't
hang
Singapore where
people.
you get, you die if you have cannabis?
Correct. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah. Several cannabis entrepreneurs said in interviews that they expected prices to stabilize once there is regulatory clarity, and that the Thai government would not dare destroy an industry with significant economic potential.
No way. They say that people now see clearly that you're not going to put Pandora back in the box, says James Porter, the chief executive of Siam Green. That's a dispensary that raised around $1 million from investors in Bangladesh, India, Thailand, and the US.
Yeah, companies that are operating properly, that have a good management team, and that are well capitalized will be the ones that end up staying around, according to Mr. Porter.
And the beautiful grow right
There
there,
you go, eh?
sun and lights. Wow.
All right.
Siam Green, they plan to open 3 or more dispensaries this year in one of the several company firms that it's looking for expansion. It looks like they're gonna keep going. This is a really long article,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
looks like they're
I
going
agree.
to keep expanding until the government tells them to stop. They're just unregulated right now.
Yeah, yeah, because the previous government
So
didn't have the regulations in it, and now they've got this new government, and they're going to put some regulations in it. So we'll see what happens there. We'll have to keep
yeah.
an eye on that. All right, up next for the marijuana moment, Bahamas government unveils proposal to legalize marijuana for medical, religious, and scientific use.
Very good. The top officials in the Bahamas have announced a legislative package that would legalize cannabis for medical, religious, and research purposes. Personal possession of small amounts of cannabis would also be decriminalized, and past convictions for simple possession would be expunged.
Why don't they just legalize it?
Why don't they?
Yeah. Together, the suite of bills would establish a local framework for cannabis production and, according to government, ensure a well-regulated, safe, and controlled cannabis industry. I just think they use the word decriminalization and legalization sometimes gets mixed up.
I think so. I think they don't understand. That's Attorney General Ryan Pinder and Health and Wellness Minister Michael Darville announced the proposal reforms during the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing this past Thursday.
Pinder said he'd like to have the bills in Parliament by October. The goal would be to debate them by the end of this calendar year, he says, because there is a lot of work that has to go into setting up the authority. There is training, certificates, the digital platform for tracing and prescriptions, and all that has to be done before the licenses are issued.
If passed, doctors in the Bahamas would be able to recommend cannabis for specific conditions, including cancer, multiple sclerosis, and epilepsy, saying there are many Bohemians, some who suffer from debilitating illness such as end-stage cancers and various forms of depressions that are not responsive to clinical therapy and post-traumatic stress, says Darville.
The changes would also permit the religious use of cannabis by Rastafarians who would need to obtain special licenses. While the policy reforms would not legalize cannabis broadly, possession of up to 30 grams of marijuana would be decriminalized, subject to a $250 fine in lieu of a criminal penalty. Past convictions of simple possession would be expunged. So basically, they've done all the legalization thing, except for they still want to issue a fine.
It's because they want to make money.
Yeah.
It's just it's a cash grab. So it's fine if you have it, but you have to pay us money in order to keep it. That's nice.
Yeah.
The central piece of legislation in the Cannabis Bill of 2023, other bills in the package deal with regulations, changes to dangerous drugs, health professions laws, pharmacy changes.
Yeah, and licensees in the regulated cannabis industry would need to be Bohemian and at least 21 years of age. Ownership groups would also need to include a certain percentage of Bohemians based on license type. Cultivators, for example, would need to be 100% Bohemian owned. Testing, manufacturing, and research licenses would need 30% Bohemian ownership.
I like it. We have a number of licenses that will be in place, and opportunities for Bahamians to participate. And we look forward to their participation, Pinder said. We do believe this is going to have a positive economic impact.
The system would be overseen by a new government cannabis authority, which would consist of 9 members presenting a faith-based organization, civil society, and 1 person each from the fields of banking, law, agricultural, scientific research, pharmacy, and medicine. I just don't like the fact that it's based on religious stuff there. Sorry, but faith-based organization.
Sure. No. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I just have a problem with
the government website about the proposal. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, and they're mixing it. Comprehensive framework is not arbitrary. It's rooted in research of the Caribbean Community Secretariat's 2018 report on cannabis. Additionally, it says the bill's authors also studied cannabis regulations in Jamaica, Barbados, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, and Canada. This ensures that our legislation is in line with international best practices and tailored to our unique cultural and legal context.
2018, the heads of 19 Caribbean nations, including Bahamas, Barbados, Haiti, Jamaica, and others, agreed to review cannabis' current status with a view to reclassification, citing human and religious rights issues stemming from criminalization as well as the economic benefits to be derived from the regulatory industry.
Saying on Thursday's press conference that the country's Ministry of Agriculture is also working to allow cannabis cultivation on a parcel of land that it oversees. That's good.
Yeah, they set aside 25 acres in Nassau in the new agribusiness park that will be accessible for micro cultivation. Needless to say, on the family island, there is much more opportunity for agricultural land, especially on Anders and That one I can't pronounce.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Good
So there you
progress
go.
there, Bahamas.
Yeah, and it's probably got like the faith-based part is probably because they're doing it for they're allowing it for religious purposes.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, that
I
that
think so.
that'd be
And
why.
I think that's
Yeah,
great. We should be
yeah,
allowing
yeah.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, what do you say? Time to take a break.
Sounds good.
All right, Kelly and I will be right back after we have our joint session, and you're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Hey, and we're back for our medication session. Actually, mine's still going over here. And you're live with Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. Well, Rev Kelly, we got 5 more stories to go. Let's see if we can get through them before the end of the show. And we're going to start off with one that comes to us from Australia. And the headline there says, "This is a medicine. The Australians prescribes cannabis, but left fighting to keep their jobs."
Wow. When Zia Zarico told her manager that she had a legal prescription for medical cannabis, she hoped it would help break down the stigma that people who use cannabis are useless stoners.
Now, everyone knows they work with someone who is a very high level worker, very hardworking, very engaged, and I am a medical cannabis, and I'm on medical cannabis, says a university lecturer from Melbourne.
Until people like me say I'm actively taking it and it helps me do my job, the stigma is never going to go away. But not all workplaces are so accepting, and some people risk losing their jobs if they are open about their use of cannabis.
Yeah. Medical cannabis is an issue that businesses, employees, unions, and governments across Australia are trying to navigate after its introduction as a prescribed medication. James, a New South Wales mechanic, was prescribed medical cannabis by his doctor for anxiety and depression. But after declaring his use of cannabis to his employer, he was stood down, so he stopped taking it.
Oh no. He says it was
Mm.
terrible. It broke me because they forced my hand. James says he informed his employer in February that he had been prescribed cannabis, prompting discussions between his union, the company's HR department, and his doctor. In May, as his employer contemplated how to deal with the issue, he was required to perform a urine drug test at work.
He declared during the testing process that he had used medical cannabis on the weekend. Despite passing the test, James was stood down with 2 weeks' pay. James says the company told him he had to stop the medication or rethink his employment. They're not a doctor, he says, but they basically said you need to stop taking your medication.
Michael, an electrician from Western Victoria, is hiding his medical cannabis use from his employer, and every day he risks the possibility of failing a urine drug test.
Yeah. He was prescribed the drug 3 years ago, or medicine 3 years ago, and informed his employer, as required by his contract. But last year, the company said its new policy stipulating that staff taking medical cannabis must not consume products containing THC. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
only the non-intoxicating, I guess. Michael
Yeah,
says that he's still taking medical cannabis containing the THC, says it helps him sleep,
yeah,
and he's never impaired at work. He says, it's like running the gauntlet. It makes me worried because I need to provide for my family.
yeah. This is adds to the stress to
Yeah.
everything. Uh, Zerico, at 33, was prescribed medical cannabis 6 months ago for anxiety and sleeping issues. She is firm in her belief that this has improved her productivity at work. I would be worse at my job if I lost my medical cannabis, she says.
Hmm. Victoria Parliament Upper House will next week debate a motion to establish an inquiry into workplace drug testing regulations, and they'll consider potential reforms around medical cannabis.
The Legalized Cannabis Party, who moved the motion, says some workplaces have drug testing rules that discriminate against medical cannabis users and force them to choose between their medication, or their livelihood.
In Australia, medical cannabis can be accessed with a prescription, and it's regulated by the Therapeutic Goods Administration. It can be prescribed for a range of health conditions, including anxiety and depression, nausea arising from cancer, pain resulting from multiple sclerosis, chronic pain, and endometritis.
And I wouldn't think going through this would help them at all with their anxiety.
Yeah.
Legalized cannabis argues medicinal cannabis should be treated in the same way as prescription medication, meaning it is not a barrier to employment if someone is not impaired at work.
Since there's no impairment test for cannabis, prescribed users still risk failing a workplace drug test or losing their license for driving with cannabis in their system.
Zeriko, who is the sole income earner in her household, says if her employer were to mandate workplace drug testing, she would be forced to quit her medication, but she fears she would suffer a breakdown and anxiety if she had to stop her medication.
Of course. She says, so suffering in a way I didn't realize I was suffering until I didn't feel anxiety. It would be debilitating to lose it. It talks about the different THC being in your system. And in the
Mhm.
workplace, some industries, such as mining or transport, have legislative requirements to test for illicit drug use, while using others to conduct drug testing under occupational health and safety schemes or enterprise agreements. Maybe kind of like here if you're a pilot
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And some have backed off on some of the stuff as well. So, employers can launch an unfair dismissal claim if they allege that their dismissal on the basis of cannabis use was unreasonable. But lawyer Matt Henderson says it would likely take a workplace medical cannabis discrimination case to be won to spark reform.
Saying we're waiting for someone to win a case and for the law to be nudged along, says Henderson, who has represented several clients who use medical cannabis. That happened here in Canada, Al. That's what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
That's what was needed here, all those court cases.
yeah. Court cases, one after the other. So,
After the
yeah,
other.
this is another long story, but you can see that,
Yeah.
it
Australia's
is
trying to do some
affecting.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Some people who are, all they're doing is they just want to be able to work.
Yeah.
They don't want. They're not as if they're. It's not as if
No.
they're high at work or anything like that.
Mm,
Um,
mm. And,
and
they did
go ahead.
medical, like the opiates and the, pharmaceutical stuff. There's never a policy for that kind of stuff when you sign on to be employed somewhere. So why is it that cannabis medication always has that regulation? It's time to change here, and it's time to
Time to
change.
change. That's right. Now that story mentioned something about Australia and their driving laws. Here we
Yeah.
go. Chronic illness sufferers push for reform of cannabis driving laws, lagging behind the science.
Yes, please. A leading pain management specialist says patients with chronic pain are refusing to use medical cannabis even when it provides relief because they want to continue driving without penalty.
Professor Richard Chai is a palliative care and pain management specialist at St. Vincent's Hospital in Sydney. He was also an inaugural member of the Australian Cannabis Council on Medical Cannabis. He believes current driving laws in every state except Tasmania are unfair because they do not test for impairment, but rather for the presence of THC in the driver's system. And that's what it is here in Canada as well. Exactly the
Yeah,
same thing.
that's
Yeah.
a wonderful way to put it. They're not testing for impairment. They're testing for levels, and levels are different in everyone's body. Now, I
Hmm.
have some patients who say, yes, cannabis has worked for them, but they will prefer to put up with the pain than give up driving.
Yeah. He says that I think the current laws are unfair because the laws allow patients to drive with the opioids. They are allowed to drive with morphine, but not allowed to drive with THC.
Yeah, I love this article. Look at that quote here. They're allowed to drive with
Yeah.
benzos, with Valium in their blood. You really are. You can take a Valium and drive a car, and
Yeah.
you're not in jail in Canada here, at least. So yes, the law is unfair and the law needs to change. This is a great article, Al.
Mm. Legalized Cannabis Party MP Jeremy Buckingham introduced a bill in the New South Wales Parliament this month to provide exemptions to the driving laws for registered medical cannabis patients.
Wow. He says the current laws, which carry fines and driving disqualifications for the detection of THC in a driver's saliva, blood, or urine, only created a perception of the safety not based on the reality.
Yeah. He says the data shows that people can drive with medical cannabis, not be impaired, and there's not an explosion in the road toll and traffic accidents associated with the use of cannabis.
Saying we've seen that in the United States, we've seen that in Canada. We've got these social laboratories that have been operating in other countries for nearly a decade.
Yeah, yeah, there have not been an explosion in accidents associated with cannabis.
There you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
People take it responsibility safely. The roads remain safe. Everything they're saying here. And then it moves on to advocating evidence-based reform. So the major parties in Victoria supporting a closed trial for medical cannabis patients as part of a push to reform driving laws. And in Western Australia, a parliamentary committee has also recommended exemptions for prescribed patients. It feels like they're so much further ahead of us there in
yeah,
Australia.
that part of it, eh? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they say Australia is the only country in the world with random roadside THC testing. Well, we do that here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. At Sydney's University's Brain and Mind Center, the Lambert Initiative is adding its academic heft to the push for reform of driving laws. Good.
There's a professor, Ian McGregor, said the Research and Advocacy Center has conducted about 60 studies since it was established in 2015. They've got a $33 million donation from a family.
Wow. Yeah. And
Mhm.
currently has 12 clinical trials underway, but it said getting volunteers have been a struggle because participants were told they could not drive, even with no longer impaired by cannabis.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been drawing attention to that problem to the politicians and the regulators, but also conducted some research on the extent to which cannabis does impair driving. It included a driving trial in the Netherlands and with healthy patients tested after vaporizing cannabis. Ooh, I'd like to look into that. So in Netherlands, they tested
Yeah.
them. They vaporized and then put them behind the wheel of a car.
There you go. That's
Good,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
good. You got to do
We
these things.
Yeah, they say that we stuck them in a Volkswagen and they drove 100 kilometers on normal Dutch roads. It was a specially instructed Volkswagen where we could measure all the fine details of the driving performance. Basically, they showed every modest impairment for about 3 or 4 hours. Very,
Wow.
very modest impairment. Yeah.
Brilliant.
hmm
That's amazing. That's very cool.
Look at that. The impairment would be on par with something like a blood alcohol concentration of 0.04.
They weren't so that's I don't know what the legal limit is here, but that's not I don't think that's very I think that's like
It's not very high. Yeah,
one
yeah,
beer,
yeah.
kind of thing. They weren't weaving all over the road, and speeding and driving dangerously. They just proved that they weren't.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, this was another one keeps going on there. They say there's 300,000 patients there in Australia that are registered. So I can see. I know myself
300,000.
when it became legal here, I had a patient that called me. They were concerned they weren't going to drive anymore because of
Yeah,
the yeah.
yeah. Because that's
Yeah.
what will happen. They'll pull you over, and they do them when they do those roadside testing.
Yeah.
They're not just testing for alcohol anymore. They'll ask you if you have cannabis, and if they think you have, if they smell it, and they look in your face, they'll test you right then and there.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, on to our next story. And this one comes from Entrepreneur. And the headline on it says Son of Jack Harrer sued by former business partner. Uh
Oh, I
oh.
love Jack Hare. I love that kind of cannabis. Daniel Hare, the son of cannabis activist Jack Hare, he's being sued by the former business partner who says that Hare repeatedly reneged on agreements. That's according to a complaint filed in Nevada State Court. Hare, in his own filing, denied the charges in the lawsuit and argues that the plaintiff, listed as Hare Brands Incorporated, is infringing on intellectual property that it doesn't own.
Harrer Brands was founded by Daniel Harrer and Dennis Delizio in 2002, the complaint says. In the complaint, Harrer Brands contends that Harrer attempted to capitalize on his father's name after his death in 2010 and began pursuing investors. However, the lawsuit claims Harrer embellished his own supposed business skills.
Ooh. Saying,
Mm.
unfortunately, due to and as a result of the misrepresentations and a series of bad decisions, these ventures incurred millions of dollars in debt and the deals stalled or failed. Daniel, rather than deal with his problems directly and forthrightly, repeatedly reneged on agreements and continued to seek new investors and or partners to pay off and replace the old ones, not unlike the ongoing Ponzi scheme. Oh my goodness.
Now, according to the lawsuit, HBI Investor Group in July performed a due diligence check on Harrer, who had signed a deal with the company to become its chief business developer officer. During the 90-day due diligence period, HBI determined that there were issues with the Jack Harrer assets that negatively impacted their value and that the venture's business prospects were not as strong as Daniel had represented. And as a result, the parties negotiated and agreed to adjustments in the HBI Investor Group investment and equity share in the venture, according to the lawsuit.
Hare denies all of the HBI's allegations outlined in the lawsuit, and his counterclaim contends that Alessio is improperly using the Hare name and trademarks and never paid the $1,500,000 base capital investment, so the intellectual property was never transferred out of the Hare Media and Publishing Incorporated. Wow.
HPI is seeking compensatory damages and an injunction to prevent Hare from competing against HPI or disparaging the firm. Hare is also seeking compensation damages. The lawsuit is filed in the U.S. District Court of Nevada. So there you go.
Have you had him on your show before? I feel like maybe.
Dan was a past guest on the Pace Radio show. Yeah, when
I
Chili was with us.
figured that. So maybe you could reach him for comment. You could just ask him, what's going on, buddy?
What's going on? Yeah.
What's going on down there?
All right, we're just going to sort of do this one quickly. This one is coming to us from the High Times. 5 big moments in cannabis history.
Ooh. Okay. I love
All
it.
right,
The
let's see what they are.
first known mention in Pharmacopoeia, which is circa 2800 BC. So saying that
Wow.
there's plenty of evidence to suggest the ancient use of cannabis in multiple civilizations dating back to 10,000 years and beyond. That's according to Sydney Lambert's initiative for the University of Sydney Lambert's initiative, Emperor Senong's Pharmacopoeia Classic of Matera Medica. So this is a book. It was one of the first to formally list cannabis as a medicine before Christ. It also introduced acupuncture and 365 herbal medicines like ginseng. Wow. So Chinese crediting bringing to civilization to China, mentioning Ma, motive referred to cannabis 100 years ago.
Back in 1937, was the first arrest under the Marijuana Tax Act. And that was Moses Baker. He was arrested in Denver, Colorado, and police allegedly found a 1/4 ounce of reefer in his drawer at a rooming house. He was arrested him for drunken disturbance charge.
Yep. My goodness.
Served 18 months. 18 months.
18 months.
18 months.
For 1/4 ounce of the reefer.
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, geez. First U.S. medical patient in 76. After 1 year of getting busted for growing cannabis, the court ruled on November 24, 76, that Robert Randall had established a defense of medical necessity to use cannabis for his glaucoma. So in 76, that was the first one for glaucoma.
Yeah, and he became the nation's first medical cannabis patient, receiving 300 joints per month.
I want
10 joints a day you got from the government. Yeah.
Wow.
First state medical cannabis law, 1996. That would be, they say, New Mexico was the first state to recognize medical properties of cannabis, establishing a therapeutic program for glaucoma and chemo back in 1978. But it was California's Prop 215 that became the first major statewide medical cannabis program. Okay.
Okay. The first country to legalize adult use cannabis happened in 2013, and we know before us in Canada it was Uruguay, and it was December 10th in 2013. And then they nearly 1 year later in 2014, they legalized the cultivation of up to 6 plants at home. Of course, we know that they have those social clubs that we wish that we had here, and they're state-controlled cannabis dispensaries. You can go to a pharmacy or you can go to a club and you can grow your own. It's a little bit different than here. And you can't have very strong. It has to be alpha, beta, if you can remember, and it's all like 5% THC. I think there's one that's like 7.
You're only allowed, you're only allowed so many grams, and you had to register and all that stuff. Correct.
All right. A little bit different than here. We're a little bit freer here.
Yes. Yeah. All right. We got a few minutes. We can cover this story here. Coming to us from Entrepreneur, and the headline on it says, St. Louis, Missouri officials considering allowing cannabis lounges. Yes.
Ooh, let's go to Missouri. They're considering allowing the operation of cannabis lounges. Under the plan, patrons could smoke cannabis and eat cannabis products on site.
Nice. Aldermanic President Megan Green told the St. Louis Business Journal that the lounges have the potential to provide an economic boom for the city. If St. Louis is a little more lax in regulations and allows more of the cannabis industry to take hold here, It means that not only people from across the state may come, but perhaps tourism from other states like Illinois, where people are looking for products that are lower cost than in their own state, Dreen says to the Journal.
A private cannabis lounge opened in the city in 2019 prior to voters approving broad cannabis legalization reforms in 2022, and at least 3 others that have opened within the city limits, according to the Dispatch. According to a Feast magazine report, the first lounge on Cherokee Street initially just served CBD products. State law does not provide cannabis lounges and restricts on-site consumption at licensed dispensaries.
Green and spokesman Mayor Tashara O. Jones indicated they are working through clean air health concerns and distance requirements in places such as schools, child care centers, places of worship, requirements included for cannabis businesses under state law.
Why would we not want to have a cannabis anything near a place of worship? I'm wondering why that's being considered. There's schools, child care, okay, children, but places of worship, no, I don't think so. They're hoping to draft the proposal by this fall.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Maybe lounges coming to St. Louis.
Love it.
That'd be nice. It'd be nice if they come to
Hopefully
Ontario.
beside a church, in a church, next to a synagogue, in a temple. What's going on, you guys? Put all around that religion.
Yeah, when you consider that we just went through a story from the Bahamas about the fact that they're going to allow it for religion purposes.
Yeah, and now they're putting it in the same as child cares and schools. I don't think so, guys.
Crime. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. I know. All right. Anything you want to say before we go?
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. That's right. And just so you know, it's not raining here. It's just a big puffy clouds in the sky, and that's it.
Good.
All right. That's our news for August the 28th, 2023. And we'd like to say thanks to our sponsors. That's legacy420.com, Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, and the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Other than that, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate. Catch your next broadcast Thursday at 10 a.m. Bye-bye. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.